So they're talking about Priti Patel, who's they say is quite liked among MPs, and she was a close ally of Boris Johnson. And I think there was a report a few weeks ago, which I thought was quite interesting, that said that maybe Liz Truss could be Priti Patel's chancellor.
Well, let's have a look at the day's politics news now. And The Times is reporting that the Popular Conservatism group of Tory MPs has launched a plan to install a Liz Truss-style candidate as the next party leader. Meanwhile, J.K. Rowling is publicly challenging the Scottish Government's new hate crime law, and ministers are expected to announce they've hit their target of allocating 150,000 childcare places within days. Let's find out more with Martina Bet, political correspondent for The Sun. Good morning, Martina.
Good morning, James.
Let's begin with that speculation about a Liz Truss-style leader replacing Rishi Sunak. First of all, just remind us who the Popular Conservatives are and how much influence do they have?
The Popcons are this group which is fronted by Mark Littlewood, who was the former director of the Free Market Institute of Economic Affairs. He's a very close ally of Liz Truss. She spoke at the launch in February of this group, and of course is hoping to influence the Conservative Party with free market libertarian policies. And now, they are trying to, install a Liz Truss-style candidate as the next Tory leader. And I thought there was quite an interesting and funny bit in the article, because he says that Mark Littlewood has apparently told friends that he wants to do a 70,000 strategy, which means that the next candidate will need the backing of 70 MPs and 70,000 members. But I mean, obviously, the numbers have raised eyebrows because, it looks like the MPs will be reduced to 140 after the next election. So it's quite an interesting article. And I thought what I find interesting is that there's lots of talk about the Conservative Party possibly moving further to the right after the next general election. But I think the people that are most likely to keep their seats are the One Nation Tories. So I'm not entirely convinced about that.
It is a really interesting point because, look, there is, it's a very proud Tory tradition to be a free market libertarian, and to what extent, the failures of Liz Truss's brief time in office are down to Liz Truss as a person, and to what extent they're down to the ideology and the policies she pursued, or maybe a combination of the two. I mean, to be clear, we're not necessarily talking about a comeback for Liz Truss personally here. We're talking about a Liz Truss-style candidate. I mean, realistically, who could that be?
So they're talking about Priti Patel, who's they say is quite liked among MPs, and she was a close ally of Boris Johnson. And I think there was a report a few weeks ago, which I thought was quite interesting, that said that maybe Liz Truss could be Priti Patel's chancellor. Now, I'm not sure I've ever seen the two as quite bedfellows, but it's a very interesting choice. And again, I'm not sure Priti Patel has got the backing of the Conservative Party at the moment, but who knows after the next general election.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of people saying that Priti Patel actually is underpriced in the kind of odds to be the next Conservative leader. A lot of talk about Penny Mordaunt or Kemi Badenoch or Suella Braverman, but Priti Patel has kind of kept a slightly low profile over recent years, but she would probably have the support of Boris Johnson. She's very close to Nigel Farage, and she's been trying to woo some of the One Nation moderate Conservatives. So, yeah, you never know. We will watch this space. Meanwhile, Martina, as of yesterday, Scotland's new hate crime law has come into force. A very controversial new hate crime law, of course. It's already been publicly challenged by J.K. Rowling. Just remind us what this law means in practice and what exactly is J.K. Rowling saying?
Yeah, J.K. Rowling features on quite a few front pages this morning because of this new law in Scotland. So the Hate Crime and Public Order Act, which came into effect on Monday, basically consolidates existing hate crime legislation and creates a new offence of stirring up hatred against protected characteristics. But the problem is that women have not been given protection under this new law, whereas transgender people have. So J.K. Rowling has been on Twitter. We know that she's become a fierce critic of the Scottish Government's stance on transgender rights. and she does not believe people can change their gender. So she insisted on social media that freedom of speech and belief are at the end in Scotland if the accurate description of biological sex is deemed criminal. And she seemed to challenge police to arrest her, basically.
Politically, Martina, where does this go for the SNP? Because, I mean, there's a lot of opposition from other parties, as you might expect, but even within the SNP, there are divisions over this.
Yeah, we heard a few SNP MSPs saying that they do not back this law, that they think it goes too far. And we know that the bar for this offence is lower than for the other protected characteristics because it also includes insulting behaviour. And as I said, it could create a bit of a headache for them. We saw what happened with the gender recognition bill. The Prime Minister said that his party will always protect free speech. We've heard in a statement given to the Daily Telegraph that, of course, he's opposed to this bill, to this act. What happened last with the recognition bill is that the Westminster government blocked it in the end. So it could definitely create a little bit of a headache for the SNP, who are not doing quite well in the polls at the minute.
And very briefly, Martina, we should say the thing the government really wants to talk about this week is the expansion of childcare provision. And ministers are expected to claim they have now hit their childcare target of 150,000 extra places.
Yes, so Rishi Sunak said the government is delivering on its childcare plan, with the first parent in England benefiting from the 15 hours of taxpayer-funded care for 2-year-olds. But obviously, Labour is saying that the infrastructure is not there, that even though that the offer is being extended to working parents of all children older than 9 months from September this year, before the full rollout of 30 hours a week is eligible for all families a year later, that the infrastructure is not there. So it doesn't matter how many free hours you put in if there are not enough childminders.
Martina, always great to chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's Martina Bet there, political correspondent for The Sun. Morning to Gavin in Birmingham, who says a new Truss-style leader for the Tories. Brilliant idea. Judging by the success of the last Truss era, this would make the Tories unelectable for a generation. So bring it on, says Gavin in Birmingham.